Welcome to the September 23rd meeting of the Lakeville Library Trustees. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 2:00 p.m. Present, we have Nancy Lefebvre and Patrick Marshall. Trustees, I'm Ruth Gross, trustee. Library Director, Jamie Viveros, and LakeCAM has provided us with Kevin Rutledge, who is recording and live streaming the meeting. In accordance with the provisions allowed by Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, the September 23rd, 2021 public meeting of the Lakeville Library Board of Trustees will be held remotely. However, to view this meeting in progress, please go to facebook.com/LakeCAM. And you do not need a Facebook account to view the meeting. This meeting will be recorded and available to be viewed at a later date at http://www.lakecam.tv/. So we will start with the secretary's report. And I will entertain a motion to waive the reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Nancy?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. We will waive the reading of the minutes and accept the minutes of the August 19th meeting. Next thing would be the financial report, Jamie.
So I provided you with the most recent update to the financial report for the library. I really have no concerns about the budget at this point. We're so early in the year. Everything is in line with where we need to be. You will see that I added in the other funds below the appropriated budget because we had talked about this at some time in terms of what you hold for gift funds and just to be able to have a running balance on those. If there's any questions that come up in terms of the meeting, like how much is available in any of those funds. So it's the state aid line is there, the library gifts general, the library gifts capital, and the Savas fund. So I really don't have anything unless there's any questions, and I have no concerns about the budget.
Does anyone have questions or comments? And thank you, Jamie. We'll go on to your director's report.
Okay, so we're doing really well. Ms. Teresa is going to continue outside with youth programming for a while, basically until the weather no longer allows for it. So we're thinking at least through November, then when the snow starts to come, we'll have to revisit it then. But fall story hour began on September 13th. She's going to hold 3 sessions, hold sessions for 3-year-olds and under on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 10:30, and for 4 years old and older on Wednesdays at 10:30 and Thursdays at 1. So she shifted her schedule a little bit from the summer just to try to accommodate as many people as are trying to come and keep the groups manageable, because it will move inside to the large room if weather does not permit it to be outside. Masks will be required if it has to move inside. Craft kits to go along with each week's story hour theme are available too. So anybody that's interested and has been coming to story hour can pick up a craft kit. She's working on the fall schedule, which will hopefully see a return of in-person STEAM programming. So she's already got couple of things up on the calendar for October, and we'll be starting to work on November and beyond. I'll be honest, like we're not planning quite as far out as we normally would have, but we've at least got some activities planned in October. Our small group weekly activities for adults are going well, and the hybrid model of book club will continue. That's going well as well. We've got a couple of upcoming programs. So tonight, actually at 6:30 in the big room, there's going to be ukulele lessons for ages 14 and up. So we still have room if anybody's interested. They can call and register at the front desk. next week. There's a storytelling program on Thursday, the 30th in the afternoon, actually from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. So it's some local storytellers. Karen Chase and Andrea Lovett are going to help people kind of craft their story and help to engage them in the act of storytelling and how they go about that. We've got the local author series is back. So in October, we're going to be welcoming Steve Manchester back to the library. He has a new book that's just come out called Dad, a Novel. So that's basically what we've got going on for programming. We're glad to be back in the swing of things. As far as services are concerned, I'm happy to report that all of our museum passes are back in action now and available to be reserved, borrowed, and used. So these passes offer either free or discounted admission to a number of local area attractions. So we still have a few passes that have to be borrowed physically, but one change that we've been able to do is move some of our passes to a print on demand service. So people will still be able to reserve them online, but instead of having to come in to pick up a coupon or some kind of something to show them at the museum, they can actually just print it out from home or send it right to their device. So there's actually will be an option where they can email or text it to themselves and they can just display it on their phone. So we're happy to be able to offer that now. It's a change for us. And now there are a handful of museums that are offering that which, you know, in the past there was maybe one or two that did, and now there's at least 5 or 6 that are doing in that way. So all the information's on our website. There's a link there for museum passes. People can reserve online, or they can give us a call. We're still happy to help them over the phone if they need help with that and arrange the reservations and how to acquire the pass. But it's quite an exciting change, I think, to be able to offer all the passes again, because all the museums in those localities are open, and then having this self-service feature for patrons too. One of the other things too with that is we've turned on a feature called My Passes. So when they're on the website to do reservations, if they have anything that's already reserved, if they click on My Passes and put in their library barcode number, it will show a list of everything that's already reserved. So with this print on demand, we turned on that feature so people can see what they have for themselves and retrieve it at a later time too. And as far as collections, you know, we weeded the audiobook collection. I mean, we're still purchasing as we normally do, but I tend to include notes in my director's report about areas that or special projects that we're doing. So we recently weeded the audiobook collection because it's getting a little tight over there.
Does people still pick out a lot of audiobooks with the ones they can get online?
Well, we are seeing a shift. I think that we used to have many more people that would be coming in to borrow the audiobooks to listen during their commutes, and now they've transitioned to downloading using Overdrive to write to their devices, and then they can play it right through their car. So I think, you know, the borrowing is still there, but there's definitely now a shift where people are using the electronic audiobooks instead of the physical. But I don't know, I want to say 4 to 5 titles a month we add to the collection. So we'll keep it rotating and keep it fresh and still offer that, because not everybody is adapted to the ebooks, and they would still prefer a physical to listen to at home.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Jamie about the library programs? Okay, you want to go on to the building and grounds then?
Sure. So per the usual, I've got a little bit of a paragraph there for my buildings and grounds, but the pump on the small waterfall was replaced back in August. That happened actually right before your last meeting. The internal mechanism was no longer working, so we've been able to fix that. So I have actually all of those the bills now for those, and I have them coded here in my office, because these are the ones that I think the last meeting you you voted to support those bills because you do have to do a vote, and then the trustees have to sign off on any expenditures that are done out of capital gifts. But the total now is, I should have looked at it. The total now for the waterfall repairs is $25.99, because the pump was for the pump was, let's see, the pump was slightly less expensive, but it took him a little more time to put it in. So altogether, both of the pumps being replaced, including the service call time for the person to take out the old one and put in the new one, it's $25.99 for those two items.
So if this is, Ruth, where we need to make a motion to do that, I'll do so to make the motion to pay the $2,599 out of the capital gifts account for the repair of the water pumps.
Okay,
I
well,
second that.
okay. I think the wording needs to reinforce our previous vote because we did vote on it last month.
Right. Let me see what-
We voted to do 2550.
Right.
So it's slightly more,
I would
but
need-
we
all
would
right.
need to vote to reinforce it either way.
I
So,
will, yeah, I'll vote, I'll move then to amend the vote taken on August 19th to increase the amount paid from $25.50 to $25.99 out of the capital gifts account.
I will
okay,
second it again.
thank you. Okay, any discussion, questions? Then we'll do a roll call vote. Nancy LaFave,
Aye.
Patrick Marshall,
Aye.
and Ruth Gross, aye. Okay, so Jamie, that's covered what's already been done. Is there further work that needs to be done?
I don't know if it's work or just, I've started a problem log now for the waterfalls because I find that I've had to be filling them about every 5 days or so, especially to keep the little one running. It seems to be losing water in some way. So yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I realized it was just not running right. There wasn't enough cascading down. So I had unplugged it and then went back and to fill it yesterday and had the hose on it. And a gentleman from Highway actually was really helpful to come in and say, oh, I see there's water coming down the street. So we had water on Precinct. And I said, so he was asking me if I was running the irrigation. And I said, no, I'm actually filling the waterfall. So there's something happening. There's water going somewhere underneath the front lawn, actually, and it's collecting in an area. The ground was was soaked. And as soon as you stepped on it, there was like water coming up. So we're somehow losing, I think it might be when it's not running, like it's losing water when it's not running and then it's collecting there. So he put a stake there and we're going to have to chase that down. He'll dig it out and see if we can see what's going on. I don't know if there was just, if it's part of the irrigation, because I know at some point you had tied in the waterfall to the irrigation system to have it refilled. So I don't know if it's just, if it fills up to a certain point, it's like kind of cascading out and it doesn't happen when it's not, when it's running, the water's moving, so it's not escaping. I'm not sure. But that was, again, just yesterday, realizing that there was something else kind of happening with it. But
But we've had leaks before,
mhm.
so it may be just that this one hasn't been repaired other than the pump, right?
Right. Well, I mean, they did work on the body of the waterfall, but the place where the water's pooling up is out in the middle of the lawn. So it's something altogether
Thing in the back.
different, right? And now whether or not it's not coming underground from the waterfall, like whether or not it's the reservoir, if it leaks over, maybe it's just going, and like, that's what I don't know, is if we could recreate it where if the reservoir is all the way full, does it spill over and then create a pool in the lawn? So as long as it's not overflowing, we won't have that issue. Like, that's what I don't know. We'll just have
This is
to,
the small waterfall, Jamie?
it's the small one. Yeah, the
Oh,
big
okay.
one, the big one's been fine since the pump was replaced. I filled it just to, you know, for good measure while I had the hose out there, but it's not presenting any kind of issues. It's really the little one that, you know, when I go to check the mail, I look over, I'm like, oh, it doesn't look right. So I put some more water in, and it's, but now realizing that it's potentially leaving it and going into the lawn. So
So do you have plans to have it troubleshooted to find out what's going on?
we'll start with highway helping in terms of digging up the lawn and seeing if you can figure out if there's something there that's you can see. I don't know. Yeah, so we'll start locally just to see. And then, like I said, I may fill it to see if it's if it's not running, that problem gets created, rather than calling in the service, see if we can do any kind of diagnostic first. I don't know, and identify it locally first.
Something with all the rain we've had this summer too, do you think? Or
That's where I would have thought that the waterfall would not have gone
wouldn't empty?
down.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
that
yeah.
when I went back to it, and that's where I said I have to start writing down when I address it, because it was starting to go like, didn't I just do this? I feel like I just put water in, but
Right.
now I'm kind of tracking when I'm looking at it, and I'm making a point to look at it kind of pretty much like every day now. As I go to check the mail, just keep a peek on it and see if it's doing anything out of the ordinary. But we're gonna try to keep them running, because that's for sure, you know, people like it, but it's just to make you aware that it's not, the small one is having an issue of some kind. So as far as like the rest of my B&G report, I put in here some of the things that kind of had happened already, just to have things written down. So that storm that we had back at the end of August, we had a problem with the electrical service to the building. MG&E had to come and make repairs out at the pole. So in response to that, we had to do some other things inside the building. I had to have a service call for the HVAC because the power at the problem at the pole had tripped the unit, the large compressor for one, and two, when it came back up, they had to rewire it because I don't know if the work done on the pole impacted HVAC. So now I know, like, if we bring the whole building down like that, we just have to call them in because it doesn't come back up as it should. They have to address some things. We also lost a piece of hardware, networking hardware equipment during that. That's, how should I say, that happens sometimes when there's power problems. And that was repaired on 8/25. The town is going through a transition on the phone system, which, you know, we had some problems receiving incoming calls on the old copper lines the day that things got switched over, but they're working on hammering out the problems with that. For the most part, it's been okay. But a secondary issue that was discovered is our alarm system is tied into the phone system. So I had to switch that over because when they disconnected the main line for the library, the alarm system presented it. So it's just been one of those, like, that's okay, everything's resolved. It was more just to make you aware and put it into the report that, yeah, it's been kind of chasing issues a little bit, but that's okay. The gazebo was weeded, and we had the annual service for the doors. That's just routine maintenance done. And so far, everything this week's been okay.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay. Anything else on this report?
Just,
All right,
I indicated here, like, we helped the Open Space Committee with their survey. They had a survey during the month of August, so we hosted and collected the print copies of the survey for them, and my staff assisted with the data entry for them too, like once some of the surveys were completed. The ARIS forms went in at the end of August, And I did some updating on the MBLC library directory because I realized like the hours, the services available right now related to COVID, and then changes in staff and trustees. So I think that's it. Oh, I mentioned here too that I'll be sitting on the Sales Privacy Audit Task Force. I'm chair of the CERC Policy Committee for the Sales Network, and the network's just going to be looking at like kind of an overall audit of what kind of information it takes in and making sure that we, I don't know, I guess just have everything ducks in a row and a plan for, you know, like with all the cybersecurity issues that have been happening, the task force will be looking at some of that, but it's also just about privacy to make sure that we're keeping what we need to keep, but not keeping what we don't need to keep, and just where all of making sure that record retention is happening appropriately, or things are being removed from the system if they're no longer needed. So it's just a process that the network will be going through probably over many months. They're going to be starting with the ILS, but then kind of working through a different series of checklists. So I just want to make you aware that I will be spending some time helping with that, but as a member library, it benefits Lakeville. And we're also probably, all of us on the task force are kind of looking at it too now, whether or not locally what you are doing as far as data collection and patron privacy too within the library. So it's a useful exercise.
Those lazy summer days, huh, Jamie? Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, does anybody have questions or comments before we go on? I guess, Jamie, we ask you to fill us in on Friends of the Library.
Okay. So the next meeting for the Friends is scheduled for Monday, October 25th. They've had to change it. Normally it's first Monday, but there were some conflicts with some of the regular members. So they've moved the October meeting till the end of the month. And what they actually will do is not meet in November because it's so late in the month. And they will be at the Arts and Music Festival that's going to be happening on October 2nd. So they'll have an informational booth if anyone's interested about what the Friends do or would like to sign up. I think they'll have their tote bags available for sale as well. And then also to let you know, they're not planning on having a book sale this fall. With everything going on and just really in terms of timing, trying to plan for that and having enough volunteers to help with the setup and breakdown, it just made more sense. The book room is doing very well as it is. Donations are coming in at a pace that are manageable for everybody. So they're just going to have the book room, which is always open and available when the library's open, and hold off on a book sale. They'll revisit it in the spring.
All right, next on the agenda is the Great Ponds Gallery. Until October 15th, Chip Davenport's paintings will be up. It's a wonderful exhibit, and I would like to ask everybody listening to LakeCAM and ask my fellow directors, if you can, please support our artists. They've kind of had a hard time as well as everybody else. You'll see next week at the Arts and Music Festival that it's nice to have people back, and we feel the same way about our artists in the gallery. We hope that if you do see them, see the exhibits, that you'll sign the book and let the artists know that you support them. Chip did have our first reception on September 9th. It was in the evening. It was supposed to be an indoor-outdoor reception that went the way of 2021, that everything looked great to be outside except for the weather. So we had it indoors and everything was fine. People were kind to socially distance. They wore masks inside the building, and Chip and his wife Marcia were kind enough to give everybody a take-home snack. So it was a beautiful evening, and it was nice to be back into that world of having receptions and offering art and the ability to speak to the artists, to the public. And we hope we'll be able to continue that. Our next exhibit going up on October 15th will be Lakeville artist Dan Cooney, and his will be up until the end of the year. And that's it for the gallery, unless anyone has questions. Okay, next on our agenda then is the HCA Charitable Contributions. And I don't know if I hand this to Jamie or to Patrick.
Well, I can talk a little bit. Jamie and I did briefly, or at least I told Jamie a little bit about what was happening with that. The committee met in, oh gosh, it's August, I guess, late August. And we're next meeting on September 30th. But what they are looking for is they're looking to utilize, and I apologize because I did not bring my right notes with this, but they have, I believe, $30,000 right now set up for programs to be utilized for specific areas. And what they are seeking are boards and departments to kind of give a wish list, which is what the committee will be looking over on September 30th. Basically, it's items that would not be normally supported by the municipal budget. So for instance, one of the examples that they gave, and this is where I'm not quite sure on my notes, but like historical flags, if we wanted in the, if the town wanted in the four corner or the corner area there where the downtown is, so to speak. They're trying to differentiate between one-time projects and continuations because this funding is not obviously guaranteed to continue. So what they were looking for is basically a wish list from boards and committees. And this is what I had asked Jamie if there were things that the library was looking to do that I can bring back to the committee next Thursday, I think is the 30th. And just to see where the library wishes fall in. I know they were looking at other departments and whatnot as well too, the Historic Commission, etc. But this is sort of the, as I said, just funding to be able to do the projects that we wouldn't normally be able to do, but maybe we've wanted to do for quite some time, or be able to do this. My understanding is this is not the only time that the wish list will be taken, but they have some money in the account now, so they are looking as far as funding projects going forward right now.
So these would be all new projects, not renovation or maintenance of anything.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think they're I think they were looking at. They gave some examples that I've written on another sheet at home. But it's essentially, like I said, if the town or the Historic Commission were looking at flags for the thing, or for the, you know, where the old town hall is and the old library is, if there were special projects or things that the library were looking for, I don't know, it's kind of wide open. So if they're, oh, maybe there's some technology piece that we were looking to get or some equipment that we couldn't do. I don't necessarily think they're looking at renovations or anything like that. It's just kind of a kind of one of those rare abilities that as a town, we can kind of dream a little bit and see what are some of the things that we've wanted that we're never going to get in the regular budget to afford.
Did they talk about like when that funding would need to be spent by? Are they planning to, like, will it be a rollover type of account? Like, assuming that there's not enough projects put forward in any one year to expend the money.
Yeah, they didn't get into any of that. I mean, it was like really loose. I would imagine that it's unlike a fiscal year grant or something, but I truly don't have the answer to that question, Amy, on that one.
The money doesn't go away if it's not spent. It stays in that account and accrues. So if someone had, or some multiple groups had a big project they wanted to do. And in the future, there might be the ability to
Right.
acquire the full funding for that way.
And there's more funding, adding on to what Nancy's saying, there'll be more funding coming. This is what the dispensaries are paying to the town in the funding. So it's not like this is it for funding. You just don't know what the funding amount will be, so to speak.
Right, they don't want to fund regular budget items out of it because.
That's really the big thing on this. They're not looking to fund, gee, we want a new librarian position or.
No,
no.
it would not be any budgetary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's been various like different projects kind of thrown out there as far as like brainstorming. So maybe this is an opportunity to actually get a real wish list together, because there's probably a wish list that's happening. As far as us, we always can come up with some programming. The timing's a little bit difficult because even though we would maybe want to plan for a community-wide read where you could bring in a big author and maybe there would be funding for that. There's also other grant funding that can be sought to kind of supplement it. But, is this the best time to bring a huge crowd together? I don't know. Those sort of things take time to develop too. I guess that's what my concern is, like when's the deadline for spending the funds, because for us, that planning for a large program like that takes a little time to plan and then implement. So yeah.
I think really it's been so long since we met, but I think they're just really looking for the basic ideas right now. I don't get the feeling, and Nancy, if you have heard otherwise, but I'm not getting the feeling that, if we don't have a wish list item now, that means the library's out for the future. It's just sort of, the committee is getting together next week. It will be kind of, there are representatives, obviously, from all the various town boards on it. So people will be giving their wish list ideas. And that sort of, then the committee will kind of be looking to see, all right, which projects are we interested in? But I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to be so deep. Maybe they are, because they've had it on the wish list for a while, as far as, they know what the cost is and whatever.
So this group will also be putting out, and when we have the annual reports for the town, there'll be an annual report that discusses for this committee. Yeah, so that the townspeople will have an idea of what they're thinking.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Good.
Like I said, I just haven't been on the trustees long enough to know if we've had a wish list of things already, or I don't know if Jamie, you've been sitting there burning desire for, a new gizmo for the library or something.
More parking. I know it's like right now we're not seeing it right now, but that, if I had to think about some of the things that have been, we've got certainly there's like building stuff, but that needs to be more related to like the capital planning and facilities. So like that's certainly on our list of things of concerns. But I think the other thing that's really been more of a wish list item is parking. That there's times when we've had our regular events happening, like when we get back to the point where we can have school vacation week activities and the room is full, like we've got people, like the lot gets full and then they park all along the grass and then they're parking up on the grass and then they're up on 18. And we're fortunate that the church is across the street and there's a reciprocal relationship there where they will allow us to use that as overflow parking. And sometimes they end up using the front lot if they have something going on and they can park across the street. But, that it's hard to know, like, will that always be the case? And there have been some occasions when if you have something going on in every space in this building, in terms of what the building can support, the parking lot can't support it. So we end up having to curb what we do in terms of our calendar and scheduling things in a way that we don't fill up the lot so that means sometimes there's time available, say in the big room where you could be having something, but you don't, because if you have library programming happening, the lot is full with library programming happening. So it's
Right.
this, we schedule based on how many parking spaces we have available. So if I had to think off the top of my head, that's, I think
So you're
a
getting
wish
a-
list dream item, it'd be like somehow.
So if you get a school calendar, that would help you understand when they have certain dates where they have programs throughout the year, that we could kind of stay away from that date or something like that.
Mhm.
So if we could get access to that, that would be good.
Yeah, well, this is even just for our own calendar, that
Right.
we,
But I mean, if we're talking about shared parking,
oh, right.
the overflow is always over here in the church, and then people walk over to Assawamsett or something like that.
Well, no,
Or they
yeah,
park along Sampson
Assawamsett's
Cemetery.
been very good to call over a lot of times when they've had something, like sometimes they have events on Friday and they call over just to see if it's okay to use the lot because people park over here. So yeah, it'd be interesting if something was kind of localized around here, whether or not it would benefit, the benefits would actually go beyond the library, likely, that it would be a benefit to us, but I think it would reach probably many more people than just the library. But yeah, as far as other big programs, we'd have to brainstorm that a little bit and then maybe figure out what comes out of our long range planning process too, just for the library, if there's anything that ends up as a wish list item. Thanks.
I don't suppose it covers extra closet space or anything like that. On the
You're right,
fantasy.
you're right. Like, yes. Closet space would be great. I don't know. I've never been in any library that's had enough storage space, but you're right, that the magically making more storage appear, that would be great, but we're making do with what we have. We just have to use it all wisely, that's all.
So I guess then, Patrick, we don't really have an item per se to give to you, but thank you for cluing us into this fund that will be available, and hopefully we'll reap the benefits of it before too long. Okay. Is there anything else that anyone would like to bring up or ask or discuss?
Just have one thing, and I received, Jamie, a compliment to you and the staff about a week after our last meeting. So I just wanted to pass it along. Just some local families that went in and were excited about everything going on and happy, and just the staff was great and blah, 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 all the good stuff. So
Well, thank you for sharing that. We appreciate
just wanted
it.
to put that on. They were
I will
very
let
excited.
them know. Yeah, I mean, I'll let you know, like, we know for sure we have people come in from other places too, just because, our staff does such a great job here.
Yeah.
It really forges, we've got a rapport with the community here, but it's nice to hear that it's being said elsewhere. So I appreciate that.
It was very exciting. So it was good to hear. And they were just, it wasn't anything in particular, just they really enjoyed whatever they were doing that day. And I don't think they were attending a program or anything, but they just wanted to be sure that I knew how great you all were. So I couldn't disagree with them on that. So I tried, but I couldn't.
Good job, Jamie. And on that line, the changeover in staff is working well for you?
Yep, that's going along just well. I'll be checking in with everybody probably sometime next week just to see where we're all at, because it's been about 2 months or so since folks have started, and yeah, we're in a good rhythm, but just to see, where, I don't know, just to have a one-on-one with everybody and see how it's going from their perspective too.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I think it's going well. And, I'm glad to have a full complement of staff for sure.
Great. Okay. Anything else, anyone? Jamie? No.
I don't have
Nancy?
anything else.
All right, then we need to set our next meeting. Patrick, is the afternoon okay with you?
If we're staying with Zoom,
Or
2
Zoom?
o'clock is fine. Yeah.
And Jamie, will we need to stay with Zoom at this point?
They're recommending it unless you have a need to be in person, and I guess, you know, it's really up to you as a board. I think you're small enough that we could be, you know, in the library space and be able to be socially distanced, but it's, I think about like, are you able to accomplish what you need to be doing in terms of business in this environment? Then there's no reason to not continue with Zoom. Yeah,
Okay, then-
it's allowed through, I think, as far as the legislature, through next April. So there's no reason not to, but
Yeah. Well, we can get it done in the afternoon instead of making you stay late or, you know, going out in the evening, I guess. So October 21st is a Thursday, the third Thursday. Does that look good?
2 o'clock.
Yeah. Any problems for anyone?
No.
Not mine. Okay, we will say 2 o'clock on October 21st, which is a Thursday.
Amy, just before we do go, do we need to come in and sign for the invoices for the waterfall?
yes, please. I have them coded already, and so they're on my desk just inside the door, and I put a little green tag where you all need to sign. So I've already put in the numbers, and I've signed off, and then the 3 of you can sign, and I'll submit it up to town hall with the bills.
Thank you, Patrick. And
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.
Okay. Unless there is anything else from anyone, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So
So
moved.
moved. So, I'll second.
Okay. And we'll do a roll call. Nancy LaFave,
Yay.
Patrick Marshall,
Aye.
and I am in favor, Ruth Gross. So we are adjourned at, I do not have a clock in front of me.
42.
42.